Colin Busch reaffirmed to the media this past weekend that he basically has multiple contract offers in front of him, and Colin Grayson has a major announcement regarding the Cup Series on October 5th. What's going on, guys? This is Daniel, and welcome back in our video. We've got a ton of NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're going to start our paint schemes and sponsorship news first. Let's jump those really quickly. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Blaney's 2022 discount tire scheme. They're going to be seeing, I believe, later this year near the end of the season. Pretty cool. The discount tire won't just be on the 2 car this year. It's going to be on the 12 car. And honestly, it looks a little better than I think on the 2 car. It's a good look at paint scheme, and I'm excited to see it later this year down the road for Ryan Blaney. And the only other paint scheme we're taking a look at is Austin Cindric's 2022 Snap-on Tools scheme they're going to be seeing this weekend at Kansas. Absolutely love this paint scheme, like the red and the black contrast on it. It looks really awesome, looks very solid, and I'm definitely looking forward to see on the racetrack this upcoming race at Kansas. I'm really excited to see it out on the racetrack. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Spita. As Adam Stern reported on Friday afternoon that NASCAR is collaborating with rapper Spita on some ventures, starting with co-branded merchandise collectors of a jersey, shorts, and eventually t-shirts and trucker hats. Spita, I believe, is one of the biggest upcoming rappers currently in the rap game, if I'm not mistaken. And I think it's really cool to see NASCAR is reaching out. Brandon Thompson has been doing a lot of stuff for the sport recently, who's part of the I Am NASCAR branding. He's one of the people that kind of reached out to Spita and really got this deal going. I think this is really exciting, really awesome, and glad to see that NASCAR has partnered up with Spita. And now we'll go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the Southern 500. As was reported by Adam Stern on Saturday evening, that the 2022 Southern 500 sold out. This is only the 7th race of the 2022 season this year that has sold out. I believe Gateway was one of the races, the Daytona 500. There's a couple other races sprinkled in between that have sold out this year. It's amazing to see that NASCAR races are still selling out, and I think one of the big reasons people are really intrigued by the next-gen car. There's a lot of intrigue around it and a lot of great things about this next-gen car, but also some negative things as well. And the racing itself, too, hasn't really good. And that's with a really not the greatest economy overall, but the economy is getting just a little bit better. So, though, great to see for sure that we're seeing a sold-out crowd. I'm happy that Southern 500 was able to sell out. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the 43 car. As after the race, after the 43 car Eric Jones drove won this year's Southern 500 late last night, there were a couple major facts came out around the 43 car. This is the first Darlington race that they have won since 1967. In fact, on the day they won the Southern 500, which was yesterday, they ended up winning the Southern 500 in 1967 with Richard Petty. On top of that, this is the first win for the 43 car since 2014 in the Daytona July race, but that was a rain-shortened race. The last time the 43 car won a non-race shortened race on pace and speed was 1999 with John Andretti. You think about Eric Jones and what he's been able to accomplish and what he's been able to do in the 43 car this year and what I think that team is going to be capable to do. It would not shock or surprise me going into 2022 if Eric Jones does rattle off a couple more wins for the 43 car and is an outside championship contender. I think Eric Jones has been really solid this year. He's probably a top 15 driver majority of the year, and it's good to see the 43 car back in victory lane for the first time in a long time. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about winners. Now, Joseph Wrigley always does his little fact things about pretty much every single race when something new comes out. And according to him, we have had 17 winners through the first 27 races. This is tied for the most in NASCAR history for the first 27 races in 1961. And this is a new modern record error in NASCAR. This is really awesome to see. We're only 2 from breaking the modern era record. The record is 19. We're only 1 from tying 2011, which we got 18. And I believe right now we are tied with 2012 with 17. But we still got 9 races to go, and I think it's going to be very easy for that to be broken. There's a lot of wild card races coming up. We've seen speed from Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs. We've seen pace from other drivers, and to me, and even Mark Truex Jr.'s have pace as well. To me, though, I think it's awesome to see that we're seeing more winners in the sport. I think it's great for sure, and glad to see that more drivers are going out there and winning races. I think it's awesome as well. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about F2 and F3. As it was announced on Friday early afternoon that Formula 2 and Formula 3 are both going to be using sustainable fuel in 2023. I believe they reported they're going to be the first racing series to have used sustainable fuel starting next year. And I believe by the end of 2027, the plan I think is for Formula 1 maybe to get involved with that as well. I think it's such a really, really cool initiative and awesome to see the Formula 2 and Formula 3 are going to be using sustainable fuel, and good to see for the sport. I think it's really awesome and great to see for sure that they're going to be using sustainable fuel. I think that's pretty awesome, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about Tate Fogleman. As Tate Fogleman is going to drive the 26th for Rackley WAR Racing this upcoming weekend at Kansas for the truck cutoff race for the round of 10. This will be Tate Fogleman's third start for Rackley WAR Racing. His first attempt was National, where he failed to qualify. Then he made the race at Pocono, where he had a really, really strong run there, and now is back behind the wheel of the 26th truck. I think Tate will do really, really solid. I don't think he's going to do absolutely fantastic, but I think he'll do solid enough to get a really good run in that truck. I'm really excited to see what he can do. Hopefully Tate Fogleman can not only just make the field, but he can do good enough to get a good run for Rackley WAR Racing. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Caden Honeycutt. As Caden Honeycutt is going to drive the 30 for On Point Motorsports this weekend at Kansas. This will be Caden Honeycutt's second or third start with On Point Motorsports. Of course, On Point Motorsports had different drivers basically driving their car since Tate Fogleman left the organization midway through. And now I think Caden Honeycutt, who I think is an extremely talented driver, I think he's not only going to do really, really well in that car, but I think he's going to give that team a really great finish as well. Overall, I'm excited to see Caden Honeycutt's getting back behind the wheel, and I think he'll do really good in that truck this weekend at Kansas, because I think he's a really underrated driver. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about race for the championship. Now, last night, well, this past Thursday, was the premiere of the race for the championship. And I was very intrigued to see what the ratings were going to be for the race for the championship. Well, according to Adam Stern, this was reported on Friday, after the day. According to Adam Stern, Race for the Championship got 233,000 viewers on its premiere and debut. Keep in mind, this was basically performed on Thursday. I think you had a lot of college football games going on at the time. And also, this, I think, got a little bit less viewership than the premiere in Life in the Fast Lane. Don't get me wrong, Race for the Championship is such an incredible show, but the negative is that this is not on like Netflix or like a big streaming service. I know it's on YouTube, which I think will help the viewership, but if they upload this on NASCAR's page and not USA's YouTube page, I think this could grow even much faster. Still, though, it's good to see people tune in. I thought the first episode was fantastic and amazing, and honestly, I would love for sure if NASCAR could basically try to go ahead and find a way to make this bigger as well. Maybe put it on Netflix going into next year. I think that'd be really, really exciting. Hopefully that's considered. But I honestly, 233,000 viewers is not the worst thing, in my opinion. It's not too bad, in my opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, is we're going to go ahead and talk about Colin Herta. Now, it was reported from multiple people, like I believe it was Chris Medlin, and then he basically had Racer.com report on this. According to them, Colin Herta has reached an agreement to basically have Colin Herta drive for AlphaTauri starting next year if the FIA approves a super license for Colin Herta for 2023. This would mean that Pierre Gasly would be moving on from AlphaTauri and would be going to replace, I believe, Fernando Alonso for 2023. Now, of course, a lot of teams are basically open and outspoken about trying to get Colin Herta super license. You've got some owners like Fred Vassar, and I think it was Gunther Steiner, who are saying that the license has to basically be upheld, which I agree that it has to be upheld. But I think for Formula One to grow, you have to get a U.S.-based driver to come over. Colin Herta is that guy. Colin Herta is not only an extremely talented driver, but can bring a major audience in as well, and knows a younger audience as well when it comes to knows how to do things on social media, among other things. To me, I think it's really important they can get Colin Herta over. Again, I think they of course have to prove the super license for him to get over, but I really think if it does happen, I think it generally will be really awesome for the sport, especially for the U.S. audience. I think if we're going to see Formula One really grow, got to get an American driver over there. So I hope he's approved and able to get over there and race, because I think it will not only be great for the sport, but I think it'll be great for every driver involved as well. So hopefully it gets approved, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to that. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to go ahead and talk about the Dutch Grand Prix. Now, of course, before all the other races, the IndyCar race and the Southern 500 happened, you had the Dutch Grand Prix in the morning for Formula One. There are 7 or 8 races to go in the championship after this race, and a lot of chaos happened in this race. Max Verstappen, by the way, ended up winning the Dutch Grand Prix, but there was a lot of chaos. It looked like it was going to be a Lewis Hamilton victory because Lewis Hamilton had a little bit better tires than Max Verstappen did. Unfortunately, they made a major mistake near the end of the race where basically it cost them. You had some mind games being played. You had AlphaTauri playing mind games with Yuki Tsunoda. And then, of course, you had basically other mind games quintessentially being played where I think Alfa Romeo tried to help out Mercedes. Instead of bringing Lewis to pit road, they kept him out, and basically they kind of handed a win to Max Verstappen very easily. And Verstappen got around on the restart to Lewis Hamilton, and Lewis Hamilton went on from winning the race to finishing, I think, 4th or 5th, basically losing out on the points as well. Max Verstappen, like I said, ended up winning. With this win, Max Verstappen now has a 109-point gap over his teammate Sergio Perez and Charles Leclerc. I think at this point, unless Max Verstappen has a really, really major collapse, he is going to be the champion in the next few weekends. It's one of the largest championship leads we've ever seen, and he also just won his 10th race of 2022 as well, in his 30th career Formula One victory. Overall, congratulations to Max Verstappen. There were some mind games being played, and there were some controversial things that happened, but congratulations to Max Verstappen on picking up a well-deserved victory. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Alex Palou. Now, I believe it was reported by Jenna Fryer on Friday afternoon that around Alex Palou says McLaren is now willing to pay to get Palou out of his Ganassi contract. If you've been paying attention to the story revolving around Alex Palou originally was announced he'd be returning to Chip Ganassi Racing. But then Alex Palou basically said, no, I'm going to be going to McLaren in 2023 to maybe get behind the wheel of a Formula One car or test a Formula One car. Unfortunately, he ain't going to Formula One, because we're going to talk about why he's not going to Formula One in 2023 with McLaren, unless he goes to like another off-brand organization. But Alex Palou has basically been in legal battles with Chip Ganassi Racing for the last few weeks. So he's had a lot of those going on. And recently, we already know that McLaren really wants him. We also know Ganassi really wants him as well. There is a very strong possibility, regardless, though, that even if he gets bought out by McLaren does buy out his contract with Ganassi, basically, he's probably not even going to be racing next year unless he goes to Formula E. Or if he does replace Felix Rosenqvist, though, they're basically trying to get a deal done so Felix Rosenqvist can go ahead and return. I think this is a story they're going to be watching for a long time. We've had a lot of McLaren drama so far this year, and hopefully things can generally be sorted out for them to get this contract situation sorted out. I think it would be great if it can be sorted out, but we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon, of course, this past weekend competed in the Labor Day race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the IMSA Porsche Carrera Cup United States. And Jeff Gordon competed, I think, in the 2nd class. And Jeff Gordon would end up finishing in 11th in his class and 16th overall in the Porsche Carrera Cup class at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A lot of people are going to think that that is terrible for Jeff Gordon, but this is the first time that Jeff Gordon has competed in a car in nearly 5 years. So for guys hasn't really competed in over a decade since the Rolex 24 in 2017, I think that is generally really, really impressive. And the big reason why they're getting Jeff Gordon back behind the wheel, the big reason is because they're trying to see how well he's going to do, just in case if he does go ahead and races in the 2023 24 Hours of Le Mans. Of course, Hendrick Motorsports is looking to run that in 2023, and I think with him running as well as he did, getting 16th, I think he will do solid enough to get that team a really strong run. But amazed to see Jeff Gordon back behind the wheel, and hopefully we'll see him in more races in the future, because I think the longer he's in the car, the better he's going to end up doing, and I think it'll help him get more prepared for upcoming races. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about the IndyCar race from Portland. The second race of the day on Sunday was the IndyCar race at Portland. We had 7 drivers coming weekend who had a mathematical opportunity and a mathematical chance to win the championship. But now there will only be 5 drivers competing for the championship. This race was shockingly a pretty clean race. Usually Portland's one of those races where it's really, really crazy. It really was shockingly a pretty clean race. There was only 1 caution in the race, and I believe it was on lap 84, 85 for Jimmy Johnson, who had contact with Rinus VeeKay. That was completely on Rinus VeeKay, and Rinus VeeKay did go to social media and did apologize to Jimmy Johnson on Twitter last night. But the race was dominated by 1 driver, Scott McLaughlin. Scott McLaughlin led 104 or 103 out of the 110 laps and came off the corner of Portland and picked up a pretty easy victory. Scott McLaughlin is an outside championship threat. He can absolutely win the championship this upcoming race if he basically can beat other 3 drivers, have major problems. I think he's 40 to 41 points right now at this moment behind championship leader Will Power. There's going to be 5 drivers competing for the championship on Sunday. Unfortunately, it's going to be on the same time as a Cup Series playoff race at Kansas, so that's one thing that definitely needs to be talked about for sure. But congratulations, Scott McLaughlin, on picking up a victory, his 3rd career IndyCar victory. Congratulations to him, and it's a well-deserved victory in IndyCar, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Anthony Alfredo and John Hunter Nemechek. Now, if you watched the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, we're going to talk about something else in regards to the NASCAR Xfinity Series race. But if you watched the Xfinity Series race, you saw a really strange and bizarre incident that basically happened under caution. Anthony Alfredo basically just ran into the back of John Hunter Nemechek really out of nowhere, really didn't know what he was doing, and ran into the back of him. And there were some people in the commentary booth, in the NBC commentary booth, that were shocked. And when I saw it, I was like, whoa, what happened to Anthony Alfredo? Because we know that Anthony Alfredo is a way better driver than that. Well, Anthony Alfredo did basically talking to Infield Care Center and said in the Infield Care Center, he said he was really, really sick and was dry heaving in the car and wasn't really focused. And he also did apologize to John Hunter Nemechek, and he also apologized to car owner Sam Hunt for the incident. That is absolutely crazy to me and absolutely strange to me that incident happened. And that should not be happening. If a driver is that sick, they should not be behind the wheel of the car. I understand Anthony Alfredo is trying to help their team out and getting them a lot of points. But at the same token, in same time, if you are not feeling well, get a relief driver to get behind the wheel of the car, especially early. If you're getting sick like that, we can get him out of there. We cannot have wrecks like that happening. And I don't blame Anthony Alfredo for basically trying to be out there and completing laps. And it's just, I feel bad for both of them because John Hunter got a car chart. He didn't finish in the top 10, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a shame that basically Anthony's race got ruined. He was actually really driving for the field, had a shot at a potential top 10 run, but got ruined because of that. It's really, really disappointing, really, really unfortunate, but generally it sucks. It's a really bad situation for the parties, but hopefully we all can move on from this and we don't have any more issues going forward when it comes to that. Hopefully Anthony Alfredo is feeling a little bit better today. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Jesse Owoji Motorsports. Now, Jesse Owoji was being interviewed for the NASCAR Xfinity Series race took place, and basically Dalton Hopkins from Front Stretch talked to Jesse Owoji before the green flag dropped. And Jesse Owoji basically said that they are looking to potentially expand heading into the 2023 season. They're wanting to expand, and they're also looking to try to have Kyle Weatherman potentially be full-time for Jesse Owoji Motorsports as well. They also have ambitions to potentially go to the Cup Series in the long term. They want to go Cup Series racing in the future. Now, obviously, with Jesse Owoji Motorsports, I've really had some mixed reactions to Jesse Owoji Motorsports. When Jesse's gotten behind the wheel of the car, he hasn't done great. But when they've had Kyle Weatherman behind the wheel of the car, they've done extremely well. Kyle Weatherman is one of the most underrated drivers in the NASCAR field today. So many drivers have given him praise. You've got drivers in the field like Michael McDowell in the Cup Series. You've had people like Parker Kligerman. You've had other drivers give him so much praise. Even people in the junior motorsports camp have given this kid so much praise. He's not even really a kid. He's older than me by about 2 or 3 years. But Kyle Weatherman has just always does so well behind the wheel of a NASCAR Xfinity Series car. If you get him behind the wheel of his car next year, he will be a playoff contender. Take it to the bank. Because when he's behind the wheel of this car generally runs really, really well. So I really hope Kyle Weatherman is gone full-time next year. They need to put him in that car full-time and keeping him for next year, because I think Weatherman has done extremely well. Hoping they get some sponsorship set up. They know they got Era and Jesse Busch's got sponsorship help from Emmitt Smith. Hopefully they keep him behind the wheels. I think Weatherman will do great for the team next year if they do keep him behind the wheel in 2023. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Kyle Larson. As Kyle Larson was being asked in the media about 23XI Racing, and he was asked about Denny Hamlin's ownership side of things. Kyle Larson responded to that, and he basically said that he was not sure how much time Denny would be dedicated to 23XI Racing. But Kyle Larson said that Denny Hamlin is 2 feet deep in 23XI Racing. Now, the big reason why I think Kyle Larson is saying this is because of the fact that Denny Hamlin is also focused on driving the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. So a lot of people would think that that would be the main focus, but no. Denny Hamlin's basically focused on trying to get 23XI Racing a much better organization as well, with Michael Jordan being there to help their organization as well. To me, I think long-term we could see Kyle Larson. And here's another thing I think that could happen long-term. Depends on how long Larson stays at Hendrick Motorsports. But what if long-term, it's a wild theory, but what if long-term Kyle Larson near the end of his career goes to 23XI Racing and finishes out like the last year of his career for the final season, goes to 23XI and finishes his career? That could be something for sure, because Kyle Larson is really good friends with Denny Hamlin. So that is a very big possibility for sure if that was to happen. Though I don't know if that will happen, but I think it would be awesome if Larson near the end of his career did end up going there. But I don't think that will happen, but it could happen for sure if Larson, for him, maybe long-term, go to 23XI Racing. Generally, though, I think it's really good to see Larson have a lot of respect for what Hamlin's doing, and I think it's great, to be honest with you. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Bubba Wallace. Now, Bubba Wallace is being asked by the media about the switch to the 45 car. I believe Bob Pockers is the main one who was speaking to him about it. And basically, Bubba Wallace said it was basically the best in the ownership for the company, and it gets him experience in the 45 car as well. Bubba Wallace, of course, who moved away from the 23 car, basically moved over to the 45 car. Basically, it was just a number change. And the big reason why Bubba Wallace is in the 45 car instead of the 23 car, which is still the same team, by the way, and except a couple pit crew changes, is because of the fact that Bubba Wallace is competing for the Owners' Championship. Because Kurt Busch won at Kansas, he's in the 45 car for the rest of the season. And if he's going to have good runs like he had this past weekend for the Southern 500, where he ended up finishing in 9th and got, I think, a 7th or 8th top 10 of the 2022 season, I think they should maybe move him to the 45 car for like 2023, maybe, perhaps. Who knows? But I think it makes sense for Bubba's in there. He basically also helps him when it comes to getting involved in racing in the playoffs. And he's going to race these drivers. I know he's not in the Drivers' Championship, but I think he's going to race these guys really, really hard, and it's going to get him some experience going into the future. And I think it's just great to see that Bubba is going to have that opportunity to kind of learn what he's going to be able to do behind the wheel when he's basically competing for a playoff spot. I think it's exciting to see for sure, and good to see that Bubba is getting experience. I think that is really, really important that he's getting that experience, to be honest with you. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Justin Alexander. As it was announced on Friday early morning, Justin Alexander announced himself that he will not be crew chiefing for Austin Dillon in 2023. There's no tensions between the team, and Justin Alexander said that it was his decision to go ahead and stop crew chiefing after this season. Justin Alexander would like to be still in a part of Richard Childress Racing, but basically very similar to Gray guys. I think Justin Alexander is kind of wanting to take a little bit of time off. This is the second crew chief in the last week to basically confirm that they're not going to be crew chiefing. We are, of course, already know the Gray guys. He will not be crew chiefing for Alex Bowman in 2023, and now Justin Alexander will not be crew chiefing. Justin Alexander's been basically in the crew chief spot for about 4 or 5 years now. He's been working with Austin Dillon and for multiple years. Got Austin Dillon multiple years wins, including this about a week or two ago in the Daytona cutoff race at Coke Zero Sugar 400. I am wishing Justin Alexander the best of luck wherever he does. I would be pretty cool if he got a chance to maybe work at Hendrick Motorsports in some sort of capacity, but I think he's going to want to keep working with Richard Childress Racing long term. So, though, wishing him the best of luck, and good to see that Justin Alexander is getting an opportunity to retire after this year and good to see Justin Alexander has made a good decision for himself. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Oscar Piastri. As it was officially confirmed after court dates and everything going on behind the scenes with the McLaren drama, it was officially confirmed that his contracts have been upheld, and Oscar Piastri will officially be joining McLaren in 2023. He will be replacing Daniel Ricciardo in the number 3 car starting in 2023, and will be teammates with Lando Norris in Formula 1. This has been so much drama in regards to McLaren. Of course, we know Ricciardo, he will not be basically returning to McLaren in 2023 and is looking to either go maybe to Haas or to another organization for the season, or may not even be in Formula 1 at all next year and may go find some other opportunities to race in next season. I think this is such a really good, though, a really great pickup for the team. You look at Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri has already been a champion in Formula 2, has been a champion in Formula 3, and has been a driver that I've been really high on in the lower ranks. And I think that he will do much better than Daniel Ricciardo has done. Not only because he has a lot of talent, but I also think that Piastri is going to be a major surprise going into 2023 as well. We've seen what he can do behind the wheel in lesser equipment in the past. He was part of the Alpine organization, the development program for that. They tried to get him moved up this year because Fernando Alonso, he's going to Aston Martin in 2023. But I think it's just really great to see that they've gone ahead and brought a driver like Oscar Piastri in, who I think is really going to benefit in this organization next year. So generally, I'm super pumped up and super excited to see that he is going to McLaren next year. I think he'll have Lando Norris for the first time in a couple years outside of the win that Daniel Ricciardo got at Monza. Lando's going to have some competition again, and I think it's going to be good for the team to have some competition against each other, because the last couple years, Lando Norris hasn't had that really major competition that he would really love to have. And basically, Lando really had no sympathy for Daniel Ricciardo's lack of pace and lack of drive in the series. So generally, I think it's exciting to see for sure that Piastri is officially going to McLaren in 2023. I think he's going to do really good. I think he'll be a contender for top 5 or top 6 in points, and I think he'll be a very major surprise in 2023, in my honest opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Kyle Larson versus Sheldon Creed. Now, I already talked about this on the channel, but we saw one of the greatest and classic battles we probably will ever see in NASCAR history between 3 drivers: Sheldon Creed, Kyle Larson, and Noah Gragson. In the final few laps of the race, Sheldon Creed had the race lead near the end. But near the end of the race, Kyle Larson and Noah Gragson really started making up ground, and especially Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson restarted 8th and got up to 3rd in a very short period of time. And he had the fastest car near the end of the race. Of course, driving a Hendrick Motorsports 17 car, he had the fastest car near the end of the race. And put on a really great show, driving on the high line, what he's used to basically doing, and got a really strong run to basically try to close up and get around the 2 leaders. But near the end, basically Noah Gragson tries to send it on the inside of Sheldon Creed with 3 laps to go, and Kyle Larson basically with 4 to go, and Larson budgets and gets to 2nd. With 3 laps to go, Kyle Larson gets to the inside of Noah Gragson and basically goes ahead and passes him for 2nd and tries to get to the lead. But he does basically, instead of basically wrecking into him and turning him, he basically backed off and respectfully gave Creed the room to get back by him. As he came to the white flag, they were side by side, they were beating and banging, and then Noah Gragson in turn 3 got around both of them. Gragson had, I think, a flat tire near the end. Everyone had a flat tire near the end, but Gragson would come off the corner and stole the win. Both Creed and Kyle Larson talked after the race. Really were happy, and they basically said that was great hard racing and they got no problems with each other and have a lot of respect for one another. That is quintessential NASCAR racing right there, going for the win. And Xfinity race at Darlington especially have put on amazing shows. Both races this weekend, by the way, at Darlington were absolutely outstanding, but this was so great to see it in a fantastic finish in Xfinity. We've seen so many fantastic and great finishes, especially during the fall Xfinity Series race at Darlington. The racing has absolutely been killer in the series this year, and especially in the Xfinity at times, where you just saw a great show between drivers, respect from each other, a driver looking for his first win, a driver who's trying to get that 17 car's first victory in Xfinity. First win could have been the first win for Hendrick, probably since 2009 when Tony Stewart won. And then you had Noah Gragson who's trying to get his 4th win of 2022. The racing we've seen so far at that track is killer, and I hope that we continue to see racing like that long term, because if it's like that, racing is going to be absolutely incredible in the long-term future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode, as we're going to talk about Kevin Harvick and his comments about the next-gen car. Now, Kevin Harvick was running really well in the Southern 500, but with around 85 laps to go during the middle of the green flag pit stops, Kevin Harvick's car basically caught on fire. The rocker box has been something that's been really, really talked about in the car. They already made changes to, once again, caught fire, and Kevin Harvick would basically stop, I believe, going into turn number 3. Kevin Harvick was being interviewed by the media, and justifiably so, was very, very angry and really, really frustrated. He basically said that we got shitty parts on these cars. We've got basically the car that breaks. We've got really, really bad parts on the car. And someone said, what can they do to fix it? And Kevin Harvick basically says that they don't care. They basically said it's too basically expensive. It's basically cheaper to not fix it. Kevin Harvick had really, really strong comments, but I 100% understand Kevin Harvick's frustration for a lot of reasons. Number one, Kevin Harvick is a driver who's competing for a NASCAR Cup Series championship this year and has a good shot to get it done in 2022, especially with the pace and speed of the 4 team has had. This is going to set him below the cutoff line. But another reason is because this is another parts failure. While this car, I believe, has produced amazing and great racing, there have been some negatives with the car, and there's a couple major issues. Number one, we've seen rocker panel issues on this car. We've had 2 or 3 times this year where the rocker box has come in. In one race, we had Joey Logano and Chris Busch. They both had their rocker box basically go up in flames. NASCAR basically tried some new changes with the exhaust, but basically put a carbon fiber foam piece, which carbon fiber catches on fire a lot of times when you have that, when it gets really, really hot, and you're going to have those issues. Now, one thing that's interesting is this has only happened on Ford, so could this be a Ford issue? That is a very big possibility. However, though, this is something that needs to get addressed. There are things on this car that need to get addressed. Like I said, I think the racing we've had with the next-gen car has been absolutely fantastic and has been absolutely amazing. But the negatives is that this car has some major issues. NASCAR, I think, kind of rushed this car out to get it out, and I think that we're discovering these issues. We cannot be having some of these issues that we're having 27 races into a season. Yes, I understand it's a new car, but we've had 27 races now. We have had almost 2.5 years with the development of this car because we started developing this car back in 2019. There are things NASCAR is going to have to address, and Kevin Harvick's frustration is very justifiable. We got a safety issue. We've got other issues that need to be fixed, and the 2 major things that NASCAR needs to work on with this car, getting the safety of his car, more crush zones on this car need to basically be added because we got drivers still having hard hits. Cody Ware basically complained about his hit being really, really hard. He did go to the care center. It was basically released from the infield care center. But we got issues with this car that need to 100% need to be addressed before the start of the 2023 season. And hopefully NASCAR is listening to the fans and listening to the drivers as well. And they can go ahead and fix these problems with this car, with the rocker panel. Because I think Kevin Harvick has a right to be frustrated and be upset, in my opinion. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the first of 2 major stories in today's episode, as we're going to talk about Colin Racing. As Colin Racing basically had a pamphlet flyer that basically came out and showed that they have a fan fest that's going to be happening on October 5th. But if you look below on the left corner, near the bottom of that list, it says 2023 NASCAR Cup Series announcement. Colin Racing will be making a Cup Series announcement on October the 5th. So a month from today, they're going to be making a Cup Series announcement. Now, what could it possibly be that they are potentially going to be announcing for 2023? The first thing it could be announcing is Kyle Busch potentially to Colin Racing. Kyle Busch has been really, really heavily rumored that he could get behind the wheel of a Colin Racing car for 2023. And we already know that Colin Racing, they are looking at trying to basically go into the Truck Series next year. They would love to go to the Truck Series next year. And they're looking for some veteran experience right now. The only other thing I think it could be is that it could be that they maybe are expanding to a 3rd car for 2023. They could be looking at expanding maybe to a 3rd car for next year. Maybe have one full-time car, maybe with like Kyle Busch. Maybe have the other car with Justin Haley, or maybe they could get a third car, a part-time car for like a rotation car. The other thing it could be is just a Justin Haley contract extension. Justin Haley, I think, has been solid with Colin Grayson this year. But right now, we don't know what Justin Haley's plans are past the 2022 season. So it could just be that Colin Grayson maybe is looking to potentially announce maybe Justin Haley gets a contract extension, like a multi-year contract extension with Colin Racing. I think it's very possible that could be the case. But I think what I think it maybe could be is Kyle Busch's plans. But we'll talk about Kyle Busch in a second and why I don't know if this is going to be the case. Regardless, though, I think whatever Colin Racing is going to announce for 2023, their plans, I think it'll be really, really awesome. Because Colin Racing have been really watching everything going on with silly season. They've been teasing some stuff on their Twitter pages. They've basically been saying rowdy. I don't know if it's entirely them trolling or not, but I think it also could them being really, really serious. When you think of drivers who really can make an organization better, I think Kyle Busch can make it better. And there's a lot of rumors with the truck programs that GMS could be shutting their truck series program down. Who really knows at this point what is going to happen when it comes to this Colin Racing announcement? But there's a lot of theories around this Colin announcement for sure. We'll wait to see what happens, but we'll see for sure what NASCAR can do, and maybe they'll make some announcements. Colin Racing will make some announcements in the future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode. And was once again, like we've done in a lot of our NASCAR news videos, we are talking about Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch this past weekend, we kind of talked about this already, but according to Adam Stern, Kyle Busch this past weekend reaffirmed to the media, to reporters at NASCAR Playoff Media Day, that he has multiple contract offers for next year and that he is looking to make a decision in the near future. So soon, he's going to be making a decision. He basically told Bob Pockrass he's hoping to make a decision in the next 7 to 10 days. He currently has 3 main teams that are currently in the favorites right now. They are 2311 Racing for Toyota and 2 Chevy teams, that being Colin and Richard Childress Racing. I know that the Couch Raisers are a Twitter account, which is basically run, I think, by Freddie Kraft, and I believe Brett Griffin run that account, basically saying that the 41 car could also still be a team that's in question for him to go to. But Kyle Busch right now has multiple contract offers currently in front of him. Now, why is this going on currently at the moment? As we already know at this particular point, right now, M&M's is going to be leaving Joe Gibbs Racing at the conclusion of the 2022 season. And Kyle Busch is worth a lot of money. Kyle Busch is basically gets about $14 to $16 million a year annually from that M&M's sponsorship. And with how loyal they've been to Kyle Busch has never had to worry about this. They had a sponsor that was actually going to be replacing it called Oracle. Oracle basically is one of the partnering brands of the Red Bull Racing Formula One organization, and they're that big technology company that was rumored to be picked up as a sponsor for Kyle Busch. However, about a month or two ago, things completely changed when Oracle basically dropped out of their sponsorship and basically said they were not going to be sponsoring Joe Gibbs Racing. And as of recently, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, we heard from multiple sources that Joe Gibbs Racing has stopped talking to Kyle Busch, and sounds like it more than likely that they are going to be moving Kyle Busch out of Joe Gibbs Racing at the conclusion of the season. He'll be out of Joe Gibbs Racing and going to another organization. And Ty Gibbs more than likely is going to be getting behind the wheel of the 18 car in 2023. Now, like I said, what are the teams that are the favorites? There are 4 teams right now that are the favorites. Joe Gibbs Racing for Kyle Busch to potentially return is a viable option, but I think this is probably now the least likely option of going to happen. Kyle Busch has had a lot of success with Joe Gibbs Racing. You think of everything that he's done with Joe Gibbs Racing this year. They've done really awesome and really fantastic with Kyle Busch. They've won 2 championships. He's won, I think, around 55 to 60 races with their organization. And I think, especially with Toyota as well, they've won a lot of races with his truck program. But it all comes down to sponsorship and funding, and Ty Gibbs is going to be a much cheaper driver to get behind the wheel of that car than it basically is going to be for Kyle Busch to get behind the wheel. Plus, unlike Kyle Busch, Ty gets a sponsorship from Monster Energy, Shriners Children's Hospital, and other companies like The Wall, and other companies like Interstate Batteries are going to be willing to help out Ty Gibbs to sponsor him. So Ty Gibbs will take a much less major pay cut where he won't have to pay as much. So I think that will be where Ty Gibbs is going. Then you think about 2311 Racing. This could be a very viable option. It all depends on what happens with Kurt Busch if Kurt Busch does return in 2023. We also heard a little bit back about 2 or 3 weeks ago that maybe they were looking to potentially get another charter, but I believe Steve Laletta said that they're not looking to expand right now for 2023. They've got Bubba Wallace right now for 2023, basically signed a multi-year contract extension, and it's possible that they could move Tyler Reddick away from Richard Childress Racing early and move him in instead. But I think Toyota would love to get Kyle Busch and keep him in there. Toyota really wants to keep Kyle Busch in there at this point, so that could be a viable option there if it doesn't work out. But then you go to the other 2 Chevy teams. First one, Richard Childress Racing. I believe Bob Pockers did this in his report that he did yesterday. He does every Sunday, basically does for Fox. He said that maybe Richard is looking maybe to get a 3rd charter next year, which is kind of a shocker and surprise to me, looking to expand. But we also know that Tyler Reddick right now, they don't want Reddick in Richard Childress Racing. Richard does not want Tyler Reddick anymore in his organization. Yes, Reddick did. Both him and Dillon made the playoffs, and Tyler Reddick has gotten the team 2 victories so far this season. But especially after all the contract talks with Reddick already leaving in 2024, they probably are already wanting to move on with him, and Richard is still really angry with him, despite Reddick being his best driver, having the best season for Richard that he's had probably since Kevin Harvick had it in 2013. They probably already wanting to move on away from Tyler Reddick. So that could be a viable option. And we know that Richard has said recently that he and Kyle have made it for what happened about 11, 12 years ago. And Richard basically said that he is a big fan of Kyle Busch and would love to have Kyle Busch in the organization as well. So that's another option for Kyle Busch. The other option is going to be Colin Grayson, which is the one where I think everyone, including myself, will talk about where I think he'll be going. But Colin Grayson is the other Chevy organization. Colin Grayson has said they're close to announcing their plans. Of course, like we just talked about a second ago, Colin Grayson is already looking at the future of the next. We're already looking at the future. They're already said they're close to announcing their plans for 2023. And they're also wanting to expand to the Truck Series as well. Who's got a Truck Series program right now? Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is not only a driver I think could really elevate a program. You look what he did with the 18 car when he went over there, took that team from a mid-pack organization to an outside championship contending organization in 2008, and really a championship contending organization in 2008 as well. Kyle Busch would really benefit, and I think would really, really grow the Colin brand. So, where do I think that Kyle Busch is going in 2023? I think he's going to Colin Grayson. Dale Jr. also agrees with me on that, but I think he's going to Colin Grayson in 2023. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of reasons why I think he's going to Colin Grayson. Number one, he's got basically Colin Grayson, Matt Colin. They've got a lot of sponsorship and money, and they've got a lot of funding as well. Matt Colin has funding from Leaf Filter. That would be a company that really can help Kyle Busch get the sponsorship. Also, that Truck Series program. Colin Grayson wants to expand into the Truck Series, and Colin Grayson wants to expand the Truck Series for 2023. Kyle Busch has a truck team that'd be willing and ready to go. The other big thing is that basically, like I said, they need some stability, need a driver who's going to bring a lot of that experience. Kyle Busch is a driver that's going to really bring that experience to really help out a driver like Justin Haley. To me, though, I think it's really exciting to see wherever Kyle Busch goes. I still think he's out of Joe Gibbs Racing at this particular point, and he probably already is looking at multiple contracts. And the way he's talking to the media as of recently, hear how Kyle Busch talks. His engine failure, he could have been angry. He wasn't angry. We all thought that it would be him angry. It's Kevin Harvick that was angry. But I really think that with the situation with Kyle Busch, wherever he goes, and I've said this multiple times already, wherever Kyle Busch goes in 2023, he is going to make a program stronger. He's a great driver, knows how to get it done behind the wheel, but I think at this point, Kyle Busch is going to be going to Colin Grayson in 2023. So anyway, that is going to be over today's long NASCAR and Motorsports video. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Link description below for that. And comment your thoughts on today's video. Where do you think Kyle Busch is going to be going in 2023? Let me know in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Kevin Harvick's comments and Colin Grayson's upcoming announcement? Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have race picks for the next race at Kansas. And then Wednesday, another NASCAR news video. Thursday, might be another NASCAR news video, depending on when the 2023 schedule does release. We're going to have to wait and see. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. And I'll see you guys next time for some more great, awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.